Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, an entitled neighbor repeatedly stole my gasoline and thought that she could get away with it forever. Let's dive right into the video. So I live in a rural area and have a few acres of land that I use for farming. My house is close to a major road, which makes me closer to neighbors, but the entire area between my home is just fields. I got an acre dedicated to a few animals, nothing large, mostly chickens, a rooster and 2 pigs. I would have to make more space for a cow or a horse. I grow crops, mostly corn and soybeans, so it's necessary that I have the right tools when it's time to plant and harvest them. I've got a large barn to the right of my property that I keep all of my farm equipment, animal feed and gasoline, just so everything is in one place. I'm a man of schedules, I don't tend to stop my routine and keeping up the place until late afternoon. It helps me to make sure that I get everything checked that needs to be checked, that animals are fed, eggs are collected, and farm equipment is properly maintained. It's easier in the winter since there's less I gotta worry about with the equipment and harvest, but as I get older, I cannot help but enjoy the routine. Anyways though, onto the important parts of this story, because I've got a large amount of farmland, I make sure I've got it properly monitored. My kids help me set up security cameras all over the property just so I can be on the lookout for wild animals or anyone who decides to trespass. I don't check the footage unless I can clearly see that something happened, like a break in the animal's fence or tire tracks, that sort of thing. So one morning I headed to the barn to get ready for tilling the soil for planting. I went to grab 2 of the gas canisters that were closest to the hoe, but I reached down and didn't feel anything. I thought I moved them by accident while trying to get to another piece of equipment, but I counted the gas cans up and realized that I was missing 2. After I fed the animals, I headed into the house to check the security cameras. I had not noticed that there was anything done to the lock on the barn, but I didn't want to take any chances and not know if someone had maybe broken in. When I checked the footage from the night before, the car that pulled up next to my barn was a very familiar one. A couple hundred feet to the left of my property is another home owned by an older woman. For the sake of this story, I will call her Karen. Karen moved into the house next door close to 4 months ago, and I can honestly say I learned more about her than any of the other neighbors that lived in that home. I would see her on an almost weekly basis, either walking up the road or driving up to park in my driveway to tell me off about one thing or another. At first, I thought she was just trying to make conversation, but she was just one of those people that always had something to complain about. Mostly, it was something that I had or was doing that would make her complain. First, it was the fact that my rooster would crow too loudly in the mornings and it woke her up. Then she complained about how she could smell manure from her front porch, especially on hot days. My pigs are the only ones who make sizable deposits, and even then, you would not be able to smell them from where her house was situated. I learned to just smile and nod whenever I would see her come up the driveway, insisting I would fix whatever she didn't like, if only to get her to leave even faster. If there was another thing I didn't like about her, it was the car that she drove. Now, I'm not saying that people that drive fancy cars should not be putting their money into things like that, but she was always going on about how her car was the best thing she ever bought. She would complain if my driveway was wet, since she didn't want to get any mud or stains on her car, which by the way she could fix if she didn't keep visiting my house to complain about random stuff. Karen cared more about her car than her neighbor, and that never sat right with me. Anyway, when I saw Karen's car pull up to my barn on the security camera, I was a bit confused. She hated getting her car dirty, so why was she pulling up to the side of the road next to a dirty barn? Then I watched her lockpick my lock on the barn door, slide into the building and take out 2 gas canisters. I watched as she undid the gas cap on her car and filled up her tank with the contents of the canisters, stuck the canisters in her trunk, relocked the barn and then drove off. I couldn't tell you how I felt when I saw Karen do that, but that unknown feeling turned into rage. She thought she could just come onto my property, use the gas that I had stored up to fill up her own tank. And she even covered it up with a lockpick. It made no sense, and that made me feel even angrier. Who was she to do something like this? So I figured she would try to pull the same stunt again, only this time I was gonna be prepared. I made sure to fill up my farm equipment with 2 containers of gasoline and then went to the nearby gas station to fill them up part of the way. The rest of the containers I filled with sugar. I admit I knew exactly how much sugar to add. Karen was not the first person who thought she could steal my gas, but I hoped that she would be the last one. So I got the other containers set up and left them out in the open for her to find once she needed to refill her tank again. Less than a week later, I opened up my barn to find the previously missing gas containers returned, but the ones with the sugar taken. For those of you unaware of what fuel mixed with sugar does, it absolutely can wreck your car. The sugar heats up, turning into a gooey mess that usually ruins your fuel system in a few days. It was common practice for farmers in the area since it made sure that people around the town knew who the gasoline thieves were without even having to point fingers. I figured it was gonna be a matter of time before I got confronted by this, but I had proof on my side if Karen thought she would try and get away with her theft. And sure enough, 3 days later, I hear a pounding on my door. Karen is looking at me, furious, her face beet red. She had walked up the road to my house and I could see her car sitting in the driveway, someone from the local mechanic shop opening up its hood. "Karen, you ruined my car." Me, "Beg your pardon?" "Karen, don't act dumb. Your gasoline ruined my fuel system because there was sugar mixed in with it." Me, "I apologize, but what does sugary fuel have to do with me? Shouldn't you be taking this up with the gas station?" Karen, seeming to realize what she said, "I mean, that's to say..." Me, "Come in for a few. I need to show you something." I took her into the house, something I'd never done on my own accord, and pulled up the footage I'd taken of her stealing the containers from my barn. Me, "Now, I know it seemed really easy for you to get in there without much help, but I can assure you that I didn't add anything to those containers. See, here's me taking them into the barn myself and there's no sugar bag inside." Karen, "But you had to have added it earlier then." Me, "Well, there's a door in the back of the barn that I've been meaning to fix, and I'm sure that whoever it was that added sugar to those containers made their way through there. Look, there's no one coming in or out of that barn until you turn up a few days later to take those canisters out and return the others." Karen, well... Me, "I'm truly sorry to hear about your car, but I'll make sure that the back door of my barn gets fixed before the end of the week. And hopefully no one else will tamper with those canisters again." Karen's face turned as red as a tomato and she all but ran out of the house towards her home. I'd stretched the truth just to see if she would try to call my bluff, but I didn't have any doors on the backside of my barn. The only way in or out was through the locked entrance. I didn't tell her that I had put the sugar in the canisters before I took them out to the barn. She just assumed that I hadn't. There was not much else she could do. If she tried to sue me or get money for the damage to her car, I would be able to fight it because of my security footage. Even if I told the authorities the same thing I told her, I would be believed because gasoline theft was a problem on farms and someone else could have put sugar in the containers. There was no winning for her here, no matter how she could try to spin the story on me. And by the way guys, I'm not really understanding why OP is so concerned about the sugar thing. I mean seriously, if you have gas containers on your property, you can put in whatever you want in those. Nobody is entitled to being able to steal clean gasoline from you. Either way, Karen could not drive that car for nearly 2 weeks. According to the mechanic in town, she had to get her whole fuel system replaced, which cost quite a pretty penny. I came back to the barn the next day to see that the canisters that had been filled with sugary fuel before had been returned. Karen did not visit me again, whether to steal my gas or to complain about something. I think I was able to teach her a valuable lesson, one that I hope she never forgets. And the next one is another car-related story because I think a lot of my audience enjoys these stories. And this one in particular is absolutely crazy and you don't want to miss it. And by the way, if you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. This one is titled, "My girlfriend sold my car because of a petty argument." I am now suing her, so for a bit of context, my girlfriend and I have known each other for around 4 years but started dating during 2021. The car has been passed down for generations, by the way. It's a 1972 Ford F100 my grandpa owned and then passed down to my dad and then passed down to me. I don't drive it too often as I do have my own car, but I use it for work. Recently we've gotten into an argument over me not taking care of our 2 cats. Well, the thing is, I spent almost all day working and the rest of it resting, so what did she do? She got the pickup truck, went to a junkyard and sold my car. Worst part? She sold it for $400. Keep in mind, this truck was in pristine condition. When I got back home from the bar, I noticed the pickup was not there. I asked her and she told me what she did. I instantly packed up my things, my cat, and told her we were done and left. I've been getting calls from her family and friends every day calling me names. Am I in the wrong? Relevant comments, the argument. First time we had an argument over chores. Last argument we had was about her disappearing on me for 9 hours without any previous notice. That was just a month ago. So the thing is, it's not like I just didn't take care of the cats at all. I just was really busy with work and got back home really tired. Also keep in mind that I was the breadwinner in the house. I had an agreement that she would do the chores, I put food on the table. I still love the cats and fed them. Update to the story, May 15th, the next day. Update number 1, thanks for all the advice and support. 2 things first, I've talked to my lawyer cousin. He said I could have had a solid case if this goes to court, but honestly, after all the crap I've been through, I want my pickup back and some more for what happened. I doubt the police is gonna do anything after a couple of bad experiences I've had with them. My ex came knocking on my door, I ignored her, I don't want anything to do with that girl anymore. My dad also got the news and was super sad considering that truck was pretty much the family's breadwinner for about 30 years. Update number 2, thanks for the advice again. I've now filed a police report for the stolen F100. I hope it can be done. I'm also doing my own bit of research, driving to a couple nearby junkyards, but I doubt I'll find it on my own. I hope we can find the old green F100 we love so much. Update number 3, the F100 has been found on a nearby junkyard by a friend. Thanks for all the support. Update number 4, so people have been asking these things, so I feel like I should clarify. It's not like I took no care of the cats at all. I did. She doesn't work, I put the bread on the table, she gets the house chores done. That's how we managed it, which is why I feel like this was petty. Number 2, I went to a bar to hang out with a friend I had not seen in 5 years. I don't drink heavily or very often. Number 3, the signature was forged by my girlfriend, and from what I know at the moment, nor the junkyard guy just took it because it was a 9.6k profit. The junkyard opened at 12:30 am today, and since it's currently 5 am here, I'm still gonna have to wait for a while. As you might be able to tell, today was quite a crazy day. Haven't gotten 1 minute of sleep. Update number 5, so I got the F100 back over a day of no sleep, work and panic, and it's finally over. My girlfriend has been charged with a Class 1 felony for stealing a car worth more than $10,000. She has been fined $5,000, finally back from the garage with the truck. I'm so tired. I will take a nap now. I'll update you guys more thoroughly tomorrow. I don't feel like explaining every single detail now. Update number 6, I have the truck back. The F100 is actually back. I did have to pay the $400 back though, and it's not as good as it was before. It's really dirty, probably from driving to the junkyard, which is pretty dirty in itself, and the bodywork that was once pristine is now damaged. It had a huge scratch on the paint. It was a really sharp key or something, because the bodywork is ruined. It has started flash rusting, which is really not good. The paint is ruined. The truck itself though is not as great as before. I can tell she broke the brake fluid line as well because the brakes are running badly. Good news though, my girlfriend has been charged with a C1F for GTA and fined $5,000. And the next one is a fantastic story from r/ripe stories, where, by the way, you can post your own stories and there's a good chance I will read them in a video. It is titled Paying My Property Taxes. Posted by user Sufficient Spring 157 on r/ripe stories. So I'd had some major setbacks in 2023 and early 2024, both financially and health-wise, including changing jobs, a mini heart attack and smashing my right shoulder, requiring replacement surgery and leaving it hard for me to work properly. And thus we fell behind on our 2023 property taxes. When I had the money to pay the 2023 taxes, including ridiculous penalties they had assessed us, I took the cash to the county treasurer's office, and the clerk applied the payment to our 2024 taxes, which had not yet come due at that point, instead of our delinquent taxes for 2023. In September, we got a notice that they were assessing us another $1,200 in penalties, and that if we didn't pay by December 1st, they would start foreclosure proceedings. They also said that per their policy they could not accept partial payments and everything would have to be paid in full. This is key because the treasurer does not send out the tax bills until a week before they are due, so if you don't pay your taxes up front in full within the 4 days, not business days, of receiving the notice, the fines and penalties start. No quarterly payments, it's all up front, and thus almost no one in our rural, poor county is ever able to pay their taxes on time. Eventually, we got a notice that we had not paid our taxes by December 1st, and there were now new penalties and we would be foreclosed on if not paid by the end of the year. The letter telling us we had not paid by December 1st was postmarked November 26. I received it on Friday, November 29th, as I was getting ready to go pay. So, already stuck with fees illegally assessed against us, I came up with a plan. I left the money I was about to use to pay our taxes in our credit union savings account for a few more weeks and asked the manager of the CU if she could do me a favor. So then yesterday, December 30th, 4 hours before they were set to close their office for the year, I called to verify the final amount of $4,200 from an original $1,800 bill. I stopped at the CU and made a little withdrawal and then went to the treasurer's office and paid my taxes. I handed over through the window $4,000 in dollar coins wrapped in bank sealed boxes of 40 rolls each, $174 in $2 bills and 26 $1 bills. Instead of accepting the sealed bank boxes or opening the lids and counting the rolls in each to verify, the clerk ended up having to take each roll out of each box individually, stacking them up on her counter and counting them one by one. She then tried to feed the $2 bills into her currency counter, but it choked on them since it hadn't been programmed to accept them, so she had to count those by hand too. In the end, she gave me a receipt for $4,202.73 in cash credited to our bill and yelled "Merry Christmas" at me. The problem was that she was so pissed that she did not even give me my 27 cents in change, meaning at the end of the night her safe was out of balance, which would require an audit. In the end, they are either going to have to admit their policy of no partial payments is bullcrap, credit the overage to my 2025 taxes and that they are able to take partial payments after all, or spend 60 cents to mail me a check for 27 cents. Am I the a-hole? Yes, but so are they. And no, you're not the a-hole, you are an absolute genius. And by the way, I come from a family known for petty revenge and even nuclear revenge, including a grandfather who bought an office building so he could evict the local Ku Klux Klan in the 1940s, so I like to think somewhere my mother and grandfather are smiling. And yes, indeed, you have my absolute biggest respect. That was an amazing, I'm not even sure if it is petty revenge, but certainly an amazing petty revenge story. The next one is titled "Mistaken for Someone Else." Background: I am the second manager of a deli department in a large grocery store. The layout of my department is thus. From the entrance you have about 20 feet of sandwich bar, then there's a little counter for a check stand, ends up being important, and then you have our sushi station. Also our Chinese hot case, the fried food hot case, entrance to the department, and then about 40 feet of fresh made salads and sliced meat counters. Whole department runs an easy 300 feet along the west wall. The important thing to know is the Chinese food and sushi are not our department, they don't even work for the same company as I do, we work in the same space but they are a franchisee. Thus at no time we do serve their food or do they serve ours. And as it is unfortunately pertinent to my story, the franchisees are a Burmese immigrant family. Finally, there is a lot of paraphrasing, but this accurately represents the testimony I gave in court. Part number 1 of the story, the lady. So this all happens during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. Mostly our customers were great, but everyone was running high stress back then. After the head boss leaves, I'm in charge, so I try to hide and in the back and do the cooking, only coming up when the front area needs extra hands. Anyways, this day I'm cooking or frying something or other and I hear commotion in the front. I hate customer service, but I'm really good at it, so I head over to see what is going on. There's an angry old lady just absolutely losing her mind at the Chinese hot case. I go over to figure out what the problem is. Me: "Hello ma'am, how can I help you?" AOL: "I want a 2-item combo. Half rice, half chow mein, peppered beef and orange chicken." Yes, I remember her exact order. OP: I gestured to Steve, the Chinese department chef. "Alright then. My partner in crime will be able to help you with that." AOL: "Not him, you. Get me my food." Me: "I'm sorry ma'am, we are 2 different departments, but Steve will be more than happy to..." I'm cut off. AOL: "I want you to serve me, not him. Get me my food." OP: "I'm not allowed to cross departments, but Steve will be able to..." I'm cut off again. AOL: "I don't want that." Insert Asian slur: "To touch my food. Get it for me now." This goes on for a couple more exchanges. The gist is I try and bring her down and she keeps demanding I help her, so I go to my default and call a manager over the intercom. She keeps screaming, the manager gets there and I try and explain the situation to him while she is still squawking. More racial slurs the entire time. He tries 3 or 4 times to talk her down. Angry old lady just keeps screaming for a white person to get her food instead of this Asian slur. You all should probably know that my manager at this time was a big old Samoan dude. To his credit, he tried to talk her down 2 or 3 times and she kept crowing and then he shut her down. "Ma'am, you're not allowed to shop here right now. Please leave the premises." Guess what? She kept screaming slurs and making demands. At this point, the other customers are talking crap to her. I'm currently trying to get them to shut up politely while my store manager is just insisting that AOL don't get to shop here anymore today. And well, AOL, aka Angry Old Lady, eventually gives up and storms out, never shutting up. She's gonna sue us all, we are all gonna be fired, all the cuss words, the works. She is also very insistent that her son is gonna make us pay and kill us all. Also important for later. And she is leaving. I am struck by inspiration. You see, I do customer service based on a strict script. Part of that script is the parting sentiment. You always let the customer know how much you appreciate them shopping with us. So, as my very large Samoan boss is using his mask to gently herd the angry old lady out of the store, I shout out at the top of my lungs, "Thank you for shopping at company, please come again." I'm not gonna lie to you and say everyone clapped, but I got some very good laughs from the customers watching this whole ordeal. As a failed stand-up comedian, I enjoyed it, and after she finally let my boss came up to me, "Damn it, OP, when you said that, it was all I could do to not laugh. Back to work and clear this line." So we did. I had some customers compliment me on how I handled the situation, which is nice. More importantly, my coworkers, who I deeply care about, also showed me their appreciation. That means a lot to me, so that was very nice. All in all, if that had been the end of the story, I would have posted this in March 2020. However, part 2 of the story, The Sun. Same day, about 6 to 7 hours later, 9 PM-ish. The store is still open, but the department is long since closed. Part of my duties is finishing up the cleanup at the end of the night. At this particular moment, I was scrubbing the floors down by the sandwich area, mop water all over the floor, hitting it with a deck brush so I can squeeze it into the floor sink. I even had one earbud in. I was listening to the Time Suck episode about Genghis Khan. I know that because it is in the court record. Angry voice, "You!" I look up, I see a very angry young man. You all should know I'm 6'3" but skinny as hell, and I've never fought a day in my life. This gentleman easily had 2 inches on me, looked like he lived at the gym, and had several what I can only describe as very prominent intimidating tattoos showing on both his face and arms. Angry voice, "Are you the guy that's disrespecting my mom?" OP, what? I hadn't figured out what was going on at this point. Son, you're the one that disrespected my mom. There's really no way to accurately express our conversation at this point. He is leaning up against us 5 feet sandwich bar counter, looking like death incarnate going to break through the plexiglass. I'm confused at first and then terrified that this monster is angry at me. Once I realize what's happening, I do remember the last thing he said. "Angry son, you're getting beat." Then he goes over to the sandwich bar check stand and vaults over it into the back counter area. You remember how I said I was cleaning the floor? Fast fact about the tile that's used in deli type areas, it gets very slick. We wear special shoes and still have problems if the floor is covered with water. I had not squeezed any of the water from the area he landed in, so while I'm still thinking about using my deck brush as a hammer to defend myself, he lands and does a comical slide fall. He hits hard, feet slide out immediately upon contact and ends up landing on his head. Like Looney Tunes level of impact. The other employees up at the front check stands have noticed the commotion and come over by then. What am I doing at this point? Well, I've seen the video. There's a good 30 seconds of me standing with a stiff bristle brush over my shoulder, like I'm going to blacksmith this guy who's lying on the floor in front of me, motionless, and there's blood. Blood in a pool of soapy water on an already red tile floor is kind of weird looking. I don't even like thinking about it now. One of my coworkers is already on the phone with the police and informs them that they are going to need an ambulance as well. 911 tells us not to touch him, and they are there within 3 minutes. The professionals deal with everything then, paramedics deal with angry boy, and I end up talking to the police for the rest of my shift. I did not even have to finish the floors and still got an hour's overtime. Part number 3, the lawyers. This bit of the story is the longest period of time with the shortest amount of interesting stuff. As for myself personally, well, I am union, this all happened at work and I needed to testify for it. I ended up getting 3 days off and fully paid for maybe 6 hours of deposition and maybe 15 minutes in a courtroom. My favorite points of this part of the whole ordeal: number 1, I ended up going downtown and talking to an assistant district attorney, I guess, who stressed how to just say, I don't know, if I was asked about the specifics of the conversations I had, and then they would legally lead me into expressing the conversation. Then her boss comes in and gets really pissy because I keep telling him that I don't know, he and I did not get along, it might have been my fault, but we shouted at each other a lot. His office sent me a Christmas card though, so yeah. Number 2, turns out the son not only had multiple warrants in California, but he had several warrants in other states. The boss district attorney constantly complained about how this made his job harder. Number 3, when the angry old lady was on the stand, she was exactly how I remembered her standing in line. She cussed every 5th word, every other time she cussed it was racial, and she had nothing but disdain for the entire process of law. She is a damn dirty Karen, but I can respect that, other than the racism that is. And here, ripe stars, we will read one last satisfying petty revenge story before we end the video. It is titled, Cheat on Me? Fine, you will never win the lottery jackpot. So my ex had a vivid dream one time. She saw herself winning the lottery and woke up and instantly wrote down the numbers. She uses them for every single draw and always said she will for the rest of her life or until she wins, which she is convinced will happen. So, well, she cheated on me recently and I broke up with her. But I know those lottery numbers after having bought her tickets on multiple occasions. So for the last 3 weeks I have bought tickets to every draw using the same numbers and I will for the rest of my life or until I win. And even if she wins, she will have to share the jackpot with me. And yeah guys, imagine this guy really wins the jackpot with this. This would be elevated from petty revenge to absolutely nuclear revenge. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.